No need for logical space done with play tricks. No need for any kind of attraction force. Just expanding, pushing force inside expanding visible universe. Space which expanding is naked emperor. Submarine explains the basis for the fact that all substances have their own spectrum. Why different substances emit light at different wavelengths. Is about how the expanding atomic nucleus is able to recycle the energy that is scattered into space. It is about how many of these congestion areas of energy that is scattered into space are in the nucleus of the expanding atom. In other words, such congestion areas of energy that are scattered into space that recycle the energy that is scattered into space and at the same time automatically push each other away from each other in the same proportion as they expand. The more, the denser zillions of separate, unregistered, expanding condensations of dark energy are pushed out of the nucleus of such an expanding atom. To create one expanding photon, zillions of them are needed. Even more are needed to create one expanding electron, and therefore the expanding electrons are created closer to the expanding atomic nucleus. All that is needed is an expanding photon of the right density and volume that encounters zillions of these expanding dark energy condensations on the countersphere and causes their expansion to accelerate so fast that they don't have time to push each other away from each other as fast as they expand. Now they combine into a new, much larger entity, a detectable expanding photon, or an expanding electron, or an expanding mode, depending on how close to the expanding atomic nucleus. The expanding photon encounters zillions of these separate, expanding dark energy condensations. The expanding photons are the foam heads of the dark expanding waves of expanding light. These separate expanding dark energy condensations group into waves according to how they encounter the opposing dark energy waves. As they push further away from the expanding atomic nucleus, they have grouped into waves, and now they themselves are able to pile up the waves, pushing against them into waves. And now we have waves pushing towards the expanding nucleus that are able to pile up the expanding condensations of dark energy that have just pushed out of the expanding atomic nucleus into waves, etc., etc., etc. Independently, you will understand that you have read something extremely revolutionary. Here is the key to the theory of everything in physics. Give a theory of everything you will never come up with a theory of everything. Physics this way with their stupid arguments. These concepts are not needed and cannot be used for a theory of everything in physics. 1 extra spatial dimensions equals stupid idea. 2 expanding space equals stupid idea. 3 curving space equals stupid idea. 4 wavy space equals stupid idea. 5 effervescent space equals stupid idea. 6 rotating space equals stupid idea. 7 all gravitational forces, pulling forces, attractive forces, binding forces on large and small scales equals stupid idea. 8 dark matter with the ability to attract equals stupid idea. 9 dark energy that some way to somehow accelerates the expansion of expanding space somehow to some way. Well, stupid idea. None of these concepts pulled out of the hat are needed. Einstein opened physics, Pandora box with idea of curving space. Curving space is naked emperor. In the nuclei of atoms there are congestion areas of energy that are scattered into space, which recycle the energy that is scattered into space and push each other away from each other in the same ratio as they expand. Nuclei of atoms expanding and recycling dark, expanding, pushing force, which have the nature of electrons and photons, which also expanding. Time is relative because substance volume is relative also. What is so hard to understand about this? The key to the theory of everything in physics, and no one is interested. This is quite an experience. Thank you, universal physics experience. The universe is a master of illusion. The universe tricks you physicists into thinking that there are gravitational forces, like a pulling force and like a binding force. There are none. Everything is explained without any attractive forces, including magnetism. The movement of the sun across the sky is an illusion. It is because the expanding Earth is spinning on its axis and is moving away from the expanding sun in a spiral path. That is, the orbit of the expanding Earth is curved away from the expanding sun. And because the expanding Earth is spinning on its axis at the same time, it gives the illusion that it is the sun that is moving around us. This is not the only illusion the universe creates. An expanding falling apple is moving away from the center of the expanding Earth, but more slowly than the surface of the expanding Earth. Too much for all physicists and cosmologists, not for me. This belongs to the very connected forbidden fruit. In the nuclear atoms, there are congested areas of energy that are scattered into space. Recycle the energy that is scattered into space and push each other away from each other in the same ratio as they expand. If the expanding quarks are pushed further apart, then there are more of the energy that they recycle and scatter into space is directed past them, and thus they exert less impulsive force on each other. Their expansion continues unless they approach each other without moving towards each other. Of course, they are subjected to this pushing force that is scattered into space from all directions, so of course they are also constantly pushed towards each other. And this doesn't require any pulling force at all. Einstein tried his whole life to develop a theory of everything in physics, so that there would be only one force that covers everything. This force is, of course, a pushing force! A pushing force that expands in space. A pushing force that spreads into space. There is no separate matter and no separate force, separate forces. There is only one and the same physically, concretely existing thing, which is already a pushing force in itself. The density of this pushing force varies from area to area in the infinite three-dimensional space according to how it circulates itself. Nothing else is needed for circulation than this one and the same thing, which is already a pushing force in itself. With the pushing force, the congestion area consisting of this pushing force is able to slow down the speed of the pushing force pushing into itself, and thus the congestion area of the pushing force is able to absorb more pushing force. Energy. Energy equals pushing force. With its pushing force, the congestion area consisting of the pushing force spreading into space is able to push the pushing force spreading into space out of itself, and thus the pushing force spreading into space in the congestion area of the pushing force spreading into space can change completely with time in these congestion areas of the pushing force spreading into space. The same expanding photon that once started pushing towards us from a distant expanding galaxy cluster, and the pushing force spreading into space, has changed many times during its journey. Yet, it is still the same expanding photon. With external pressure pushing force, the pushing force can be compressed more densely. With internal pressure pushing force, the pushing force can be spread into a larger and larger area of space. Space is, of course, an infinite three-dimensional stage that is nothing at all. Isaac Newton knew this many years ago. Love. The daylight theory of everything from physics experts to the Einstein. Oh man, Pandora's box of physics when he pulled the concept of curved space out of his hat. Space doesn't do tricks. Space can't do anything. It's not space that expands. Only losers display observations using space. It's no wonder these losers still don't have a theory of everything in physics. No wonder. The truth has been too much for all physicists and cosmologists. I am the future, the dude, the one, the man who figured out how the universe really works. All experiments that are done with light are done with the light that is created during the experiment. No entropy has affected this new expanding light for billions of years. Expanding lights have a lot of mass, but it is in their expanding waves with zillions separate expanding densities we cannot register. For one new expanding photon, you need zillions separately expanding dark energy particles. Expanding photons are the full heads of these dark expanding waves of expanding light. If you want to do an experiment and bend the trajectory of expanding light with expanding light, it won't work if you use new expanding light in the experiment. There are expanding lights that have experienced billions of years of entropy moving towards stars and galaxies. You also need to be able to use billions of years old expanding lights in the experiment. Then you can manipulate the trajectory of expanding light by exposing it to billions of years old expanding lights that contain a very small scale energy. Pushing force that collides with the expanding photons and bends their trajectory. And all this without hocus pocus, curved space. Einstein, oh Pandora's box of physics when he pulled the concept of curved space out of his hat. Curved space is the emperor, naked. The structure of expanding substances do not change with time. It must be understood that the expanding atomic nuclei expand in force in the same proportion as the energy that is dispersed into space in search of light. These congestion areas of energy that is dispersed into space consist of precisely the same energy. It is dispersed into space that they circulate, and which changes completely in the of time as they circulate this energy that is dispersed into space. Time is relative precisely because the volume of matter is also relative. Space is eternal, an infinity three-dimensional stage which is nothing. So space can't do anything at all. Only losers explain phenomena with hocus pocus space-time which play tricks. A translation of the repulsive force is easy to describe in words, and visually, the attractive force cannot be described. For example, the so-called strong nuclear force is a good example of how a logical current moves on. If quarks move apart, the binding force between them supposedly increases. How so? Love, 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 love. Love, 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 love. Che pensa tu la mood, che porti everything for physics. 15. It is much of a logic to assume that quarks consist of energy that spreads out into space, which, as they cycle among themselves, push each other away from each other in the same proportion as they expand. If they push a little further than normal, more of this energy that spreads out into space pushes past them, and thus their mutual repulsion weakens. They continue to expand and approach each other without moving towards each other. Of course, they're also pushed towards each other all the time because there are expanding quarks on all sides of them. Some closer, but most very far away. The expanding quarks recycle the energy that is spreading out into space with all the expanding quarks. For example, each expanding quark of the expanding Earth recycles the energy that is spreading out into space with all the expanding quarks of the expanding Earth. Also, for example, with all the expanding quarks of the expanding moon. Thus, the expanding quarks of the expanding moon are pushed more strongly away from the expanding Earth. More energy that is spreading out into space from the expanding quarks of the expanding Earth is pushed towards and into them, because there are more expanding quarks in the expanding Earth than in the expanding moon. Logically, the quarks of the expanding Earth and the expanding moon simply push each other away from each other in the same ratio as they expand. It's not even hard to figure out, especially if someone were to make a three-dimensional animation of this circulation of energy that is spreading out into space. We can try to manipulate the trajectory of expanding light using millions of years old expanding light, so we can scientifically study whether these expanding lights interact with each other. As I assume, you can't do this experiment with expanding light that is created during the experiment. You have to use expanding light that has been moving in space for billions of years, has been affected by entropy for billions of years. Observe a distant galaxy whose location you know, build a lone wall under the protection of which this expanding light moves towards a space telescope, for example, towards Hubble. I predict that expanding photons originating from the distant galaxy will be pushed towards the wall, because billions of years old expanding light is moving towards the wall, which has been affected by entropy for billions of years. It contains energy that is scattered into space on a very small scale and collides with expanding photons moving under the protection of the wall. Love. 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 Love.